Alright, this is lesson 14.2. A quadratic equation is an equation that can be written as ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, which is called the standard form of the quadratic equation. One way to solve the quadratic equation is to graph it. We've also talked about doing it with the quadratic formula. We've talked about solving it with factors, and now today we're going to look at graphing it. So this time we're going to put it in the form where we put it in y equals. So we have y and x variables. The solutions are going to be my x-intercepts. So if I look at my graph here, they've graphed this one for us. My x-intercepts are -2. So I have -2 and 2. Now, just to remind ourselves, this is a dots, a difference of perfect squares, difference of the squares. It is a perfect square, subtraction, perfect square. So I can do x minus and x plus, and they'll both be 2. And I can see that when I solved it by factoring, I got 2 and -2 as answers. And so just to show you that it's the same as finding the factors, we can also graph it. There are 4 different ways that the solution can be asked for. It can say, what are the solutions? -2 and 2. It can say, what are the x-intercepts? Usually that's done as a coordinate. It could ask you, what are the roots? Which is usually done as a coordinate also. And then what are the zeros? Which also, a lot of times will be done as a coordinate. Alright, so let's look at number 2. Alright, so what are my solutions? It's asking for my solutions of x equals -1 and x equals 1. That's where it crossed my x-axis on both of those. If I were to solve this by factoring, I would get 1 and -1. If I were to solve this by quadratic formula, I would get 1 and -1. Look at number 3. Find the roots. So it's asking the same thing. So I'm going to look where it crosses. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to put it as coordinates this time because roots are usually given as coordinates. And we have, oh, I did that wrong. I'm so sorry, I did that backwards. -4, 0. And 6, 0. I knew it looked funny. I kept looking at it going, that doesn't look right. Sorry. -4, 0, and 6, 0. So my solutions would be x equals -4, x equals 6. Hopefully this is making sense. Alright, so we're going to tie all that in together with what we did yesterday. So they have graphed -x squared. Notice that my a equals a -1. When it is negative, that graph is going to open downward, which means I'm going to have a max. I'm going to go ahead and circle the max. Okay? So it's going to start by asking, what are the solutions? Where is it crossing that x-axis? X equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. X equals 6, 7, 8, 9. And those are my 2 solutions. My vertex is right here. It's going to be the highest point in this case, which is 7, 4. Domain and range has been confusing some people a little bit, so let's just think of it this way. Our domain is our x values. Is there any place I can pick an x value where this line might not reach to it? If I pick x to be this 2 right here, eventually this line will cross at the 2. Even if I pick a negative number, it's opening very small, but eventually that's just going to keep on growing, and eventually it will. So all my x's are possible, okay? So that's going to be all real numbers. Someone in class asked today, do we need to put those in brackets? And no, we only really need to put them in brackets when we're listing numbers like 2, 3, 7, something like that. Our range, on the other hand, yeah, all of these numbers can be a y value, but if I come up here, this graph is never going to reach this 8 or whatever point that is. It's never going to reach up here. Okay? It's never going to reach these y values. So my y is going to have to be less than or equal to 4, because this is 4, and nothing went above 4. AOS means axis of symmetry. I'm going to show you how to do it if you have your vertex, but also you can look at your 2x intercepts, and you can say, where's halfway between those? And that's halfway. It's also going to go through my vertex. And so that line is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. X equals 7. So all of this is just combining what we did yesterday with what we did today. All right, this graph is labeled as g of x. Remember, that's the same thing as saying y. That really confuses some people. My roots, is it crossing my x-axis anywhere? No. So there's no solution. My vertex, 0, 2. It is a min, because it's going up from there. My domain, I can have any number to be a domain. Eventually, that x is going to be hit if I continue that graph. But my y, on the other hand, is not going to be anywhere down here. So my y has to be greater than or equal to 2. My axis of symmetry is that y-axis. And a way to write that y-axis as an equation is x equals 0. Hopefully this is all making sense. In class, students did really well with it, so I would assume you would be too. Number 6 is a little tricky. You see, we don't have a graph. We don't even have an equation. So let's read. A function h of x has zeros at -4 and 2. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and come write that. Remember, x-intercepts, roots, solutions, and zeros all mean the same thing. So my solutions are x equals -4 and x equals 2. My roots, I'm going to write as a coordinate, is -4, 0, 2, 0, which means my x-intercepts are -4, 0, and 2, 0. Remember, all of those are the same. That kind of helps us a little bit. So I already know 2 points. So I'm going to go ahead and plot those points. All right, from there, I don't know if it's going to open up, if it's going to open down. It's still kind of up in the air at what it's going to look like. All right, so then we're going to look at our range. It's all real numbers, so y is going to be less than or equal to 9. So I'm going to find my y equals 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Here's my 9, and I'm saying no y can go above that. So that is telling me that my vertex is going to have to be on this line somewhere. Okay? So from here, I'm going to start with my axis of symmetry. As long as I have 2 points that are the x-intercept or on the same y, on the same y, I can find a middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. There is going to be my axis of symmetry. That's going to help us. So that axis of symmetry is x equals -1. Okay. I know that this is the highest it can go, and this is the center. So that is where my vertex is going to be. Now I know it's going to open downward, because if it's open upward, then my y could be above that. So I know that it's going to go this direction. From there, I can see that I have a max and that my domain is all the real. So this was just piecing the information together to get it to using the other information to figure out what it was. Once I get those 2 points, find the axis of symmetry is easy. That axis of symmetry is going to go through my vertex, so that kind of helped me out knowing my vertex was going to be somewhere on that. I used that range to know exactly where that point was going to follow my dotted line, and so forth. All right, if you have any questions, as always, send them to me. Your homework was attached separately. Remember, I had to go make that extra copy. I forgot a page. It is just one page front and back. It's due to me by 8 tomorrow morning. If you have any questions, please text me, email me, Teams me, whatever, all right? Have a good day.